Anglo-Saxon monarchy, king and council. In Anglo-Saxon England, the king held the supreme position, wielding unparalleled authority over the land. No individual or group could dictate his actions, establishing a clear hierarchy of power. To effectively govern, kings delegated some authority to their earls and sought counsel from the Witan, their advisory council. The Witan, while influential, served purely as an advisory body and did not limit the king's ultimate power. The king retained full discretion over who was appointed to the Witan and what matters they were asked to advise upon. Crucially, he was not obligated to follow their advice, maintaining his absolute executive authority. The Witan typically comprised the most powerful figures in the kingdom, including archbishops, bishops, leading earls, and senior thengs. Their collective wisdom was valued, but the final decision always rested with the monarch, underscoring the king's ultimate sovereignty. Royal authority, law, land, and levy. The king alone possessed the power of lawmaking, creating new statutes that all subjects were bound to obey. This centralized legislative control ensured uniformity across the kingdom and reinforced his supreme legal authority. His decrees were absolute, shaping the daily lives of Anglo-Saxon society. Control over the economy was another vital royal power, with the king overseeing the minting and distribution of all coinage. This ensured the stability and value of currency throughout England, facilitating trade and economic activity. The king also determined when and how much tax was to be paid, directly influencing the kingdom's financial resources. As the ultimate landowner, the king could grant land to loyal followers as reward for service, or seize it as punishment. This power was a crucial tool for maintaining loyalty and controlling the nobility. Furthermore, the king commanded the Fyrd, the national army and fleet, which could be raised for defense or offensive campaigns. The king's personal estates, known as the royal domain, were vast and provided a significant portion of his income, reducing his reliance on taxation. This extensive land ownership further solidified his economic and political dominance over the realm. The Danelaw, a unique English region, a significant portion of Anglo-Saxon England, particularly in the north and east, was known as the Danelaw, characterized by its distinct Anglo-Danish laws and customs. This region retained a degree of independence due to its historical Viking settlements and cultural heritage. While the English king remained sovereign, he had to acknowledge and respect these unique regional traditions. The Danelaw's legal system, for instance, often featured different forms of land tenure and legal procedures compared to the rest of England. This cultural and legal autonomy meant that royal governance in these areas required a more nuanced approach. The king's authority, though present, was exercised with an understanding of these established local practices. The Danelaw's origins trace back to the Viking invasions and settlements of the 9th century, particularly after the Treaty of Wedmore in 878. This historical context explains the enduring influence of Norse culture and law, which persisted for centuries after the initial settlements. Earls, king's deputies, and regional lords. After the king, the earls were the most powerful figures in Anglo-Saxon England, governing vast territories on the king's behalf. To manage these large earldoms, they were granted significant royal powers, acting as the king's direct representatives. This delegation of authority was essential for effective governance across the kingdom. Earls were responsible for collecting taxes from their earldoms for the king, retaining a third of these revenues to fund their own governance and protection efforts. They also oversaw law and order, presiding over courts, judging cases, and imposing punishments on the guilty. This dual role made them central to both royal finance and justice. Furthermore, earls held considerable military power, serving as the king's generals and leading their loyal thengs into battle against royal enemies. The immense size of their earldoms meant that some earls could accumulate vast wealth and influence, potentially challenging the king's authority. For example, the Godwin family, particularly Earl Godwin of Wessex, became exceptionally powerful in the mid-11th century, at times overshadowing even the king. Edward the Confessor, piety and prestige. Edward the Confessor, reigning from 1042 to 1066, was widely regarded as a deeply religious leader, a quality that significantly bolstered his authority. People believed that God was guiding his actions, lending a divine legitimacy to his rule. His piety was a cornerstone of his public image and a source of respect among his subjects. He earned a reputation as a wise lawmaker, contributing to a period of relative peace and stability. His legal judgments and reforms were generally well received, further enhancing his prestige. A testament to his religious devotion and commitment to his kingdom was his patronage of Westminster Abbey, which he rebuilt on a grand scale, establishing it as a significant royal church and burial site. Edward's marriage to Edith, the daughter of the immensely rich and powerful Earl Godwin, was a strategic alliance. This union aimed to solidify his relationship with England's most influential noble family. However, this connection also brought its own set of challenges, as the Godwins' power often rivaled his own. Edward's struggles, exile and succession. Despite his strengths, Edward faced significant challenges, notably his long exile in Normandy during his youth. This period meant he had few personal supporters or established connections within England upon his return to the throne. His Norman upbringing also created a cultural divide with some of his Anglo-Saxon subjects. A major vulnerability for Edward was his lack of children, which created a profound succession crisis for the English throne. Without a direct heir, the question of who would succeed him became a source of instability and political maneuvering. This uncertainty fueled the ambitions of various claimants, including William of Normandy and Harold Godwinson. Edward also struggled to maintain control over the powerful Earl Godwin and his family, who at times wielded more practical power than the king himself. The Godwins' vast landholdings and military strength made them a formidable force, often challenging royal authority. This ongoing power struggle underscored the limitations of Edward's direct control over his most influential subjects.